All right, and we should be live now. Yes, there we go. All right, so hello everyone. This is Secular Sekai with Tridents Against Tyrants. I see a few people in chat right now. Let me take a look and have it open in all of my locations right quick. We'll open the overlay for now. Okay. So I see K. Meinhold. I see Mr. Spock. Uh, who else? UTV and Ham. It wasn't me. Mark Sangamon. Anna, Dumitru, Claudio. Welcome everybody. And I see a plus plus from Mark, so it seems like our audio is good. If so, then fantastic. All right. Perfect. Well, I'm here today with James from whyukraine.com. And we have a couple of different things we're going to go over today. We'll do the usual news segment and also go over any other, updates, what's going on James' end. Welcome. Good to see you again, man. Yeah. So,
Yeah, cool.
several of you might have. Oh, hey. All right. Perfect. Oh, do we have any lag or everything good on your end?
Maybe we might have some lag. Yeah,
Oh, shoot.
there might be a little
Okay.
lag.
Okay. Let me see if I
I
can.
I can leave and come back. Sometimes that works.
Yeah, possibly. I'm still on a
Mm-hmm.
Wi-Fi connection, so because I had to move
Me
around my
too.
setup. Yeah, I usually try to have a wired connection, but let's keep going. And if
Okay.
there's an issue with lag, then you could try rejoining. We'll see if that helps.
Yeah, definitely. Our viewers will let us know, I hope.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Well then, let's see. Okay, so for several of you might notice we're currently on Restream setup today, uh, and that's on me just because yesterday was very busy. Usually we use OBS and VDO a lot of the time, but Restream is made in Ukraine. Love to show support for Ukraine in everything, including software. So yeah, we are moving on. I guess we'll start with first piece of news we've got up, and that is an interesting one related to, let me click this share. There we go. Okay. And we'll go full screen for a sec and remove the overlay. Okay, Ukraine's Dragon drones rain molten metal on Russian positions in, well, according to CNN, latest terrifying battlefield innovation. But we're going to get into discussion a little bit on this.
Mhm.
Ukraine appears to be calling on a fleet of fire-spewing Dragon drones in its war with Russian invaders, putting a modern twist on a munition used to effect in both world wars. So actually, CNN, I feel has. I feel this is more of an op-ed than some. This should be listed as an op-ed because there's definitely a little bit of bias in some of this language. But we're gonna move on so we can kind of dissect this and analyze this article a little bit. A series of videos posted on social media, including on Telegram, from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on Wednesday show the low-flying drones dropping torrents of fire, actually molten metal, onto Russian-held positions in tree lines. So, with regards to this, I found this very interesting because it is an innovative use of, um, well, in this case, as it mentions, a mixture of aluminum powder and iron oxide called thermite,
Mhm.
which burns at temperatures up to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 2,200 degrees Celsius. It can quickly burn off trees and vegetation, giving cover to Russian troops, if not, of course, killing or disabling troops outright. So, and the reason for the name is as it falls from the drone, the thermite resembles the fire coming from the mouth of the mythical dragon, giving the drones their nickname. So, uh, yeah, James, what are your thoughts on this? Because it is very useful, of course, to be able to remove cover from forested
Mhm.
areas, and
Mhm.
as we all have to keep in mind, Ukraine is a very flat country. We don't have mountains. In this situation, there are rivers, but there's one large river, for example, but there aren't a lot of actual physical structures that would be used for
Mhm.
cover outside of just, urban areas, buildings, and brush cover. So,
Mhm.
with regards to this and these kind of, I guess, accusations, I would say from this particular article, what do you think on the use of dragon drones?
Yeah, so these are mainly these strips of trees in between farmland for the most part, but also there are some larger forested areas, and my live stream that I'm doing today, actually the thumbnail has a picture of exactly this. So those of you who will be coming to my live stream, you'll get a spoiler alert here. I mean, basically, the question is this a war crime?
Mm.
And um, remember that the use of white phosphorus is a war crime. Okay, thermite is not white phosphorus. Okay, I've made thermite myself when I was in high school. Tells you what kind of a kid I was. Um, but it's very easy to make. A lot of IEDs are made with thermite. It's used as an igniter or secondary igniter in a lot of explosives, especially kind of like homemade explosives, but a lot of them in general. And it's very different from white phosphorus. So thermite, I believe, burns hotter than white phosphorus. I'm not entirely certain, but I'm reasonably certain. The main thing is white phosphorus bonds chemically with your skin. If it falls on you, it's going to burn through your skin, burn straight down to your freaking bone. And thermite is just like if you've ever been around somebody who's welding, for example, and a hot spark piece of little shaving of metal, hits you. It's not going to stick to you necessarily. You can brush it off very quickly. It might like burn a hole in your clothes, a small hole or something, but it's not. You can run away from it. You can like get it off. You can get out of the area, and it's not going to stay on you or in you. Whereas white phosphorus has a very a different effect. Animals, I think, are actually going to be relatively safe. Trees, though, Mitch, you're right. Poor trees. Um, but if it makes you feel any better, Mitch, those trees are going to grow back next year, and there's going to be large parts of Ukraine that have nothing but trees and animals because humans won't be able to go there because of all of the mines. So um, yeah. Let's see. Dimitru said 2,500 Celsius for thermite. Well, yeah, and some thermite can burn up to. Well, no, maybe I'm thinking Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit is 4,000 anyway. But yeah, you might be right there, Dimitri. Um, but so that's the real difference there, I guess. And the thing is this is only going to be useful for the next couple of months. And then once the leaves fall off all the trees, it's not going to be as useful of a tactic anymore. You know, that's another thing to consider. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And
Although it looks
mhm.
cool, it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the visuals of it is part of why you see a few articles being written about it by,
Yeah, it's very
um,
dramatic, very dramatic. Yeah.
yeah, precisely. But let's see. Let's move on to something a bit more positive as far as the current situation on the battlefield goes. So now, right here, we know that the situation in Pokrovsk is not ideal, because it is the Russians have been pushing there. They're trying to reach the city, and they have made some gains. But
Yeah.
we are seeing uh, some fruits from the surprise incursion or surprise just move into Kursk region of Russia by Ukrainian troops. Oh, also, my apologies. Hold on. Let me put both of these articles in the chat like I usually do. Forgot to do that. So let me do that real fast. Okay, there we go. From Forbes, Ukrainian reinforcements are counterattacking outside Pokrovsk. And actually, one thing I'd like to point out real fast, just because I find this interesting, is the fact that remember everybody that a lot of the time people want to take when it comes to news outlets and give them an oversimplified spin of left versus right and one
Hmm.
side is more supportive of Ukraine versus the other, but it's really not that simple. I want to point that out because CNN, as we saw in this last article, had some language that seemed very, uh, yeah, it seemed very critical of Ukrainian armed forces, and CNN is typically seen as more left
Slightly
leaning
more
by most
pro
people,
Ukraine. Yeah.
whereas Forbes is often seen as more right, more. Yeah, yeah. But also, we can look at the fact that uh, the owner of Forbes himself actually is quite
Yeah.
supportive of Ukraine here recently. So,
Yeah.
it just an interesting little side note I wanted to bring to people's attention.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
Ukrainian reinforcements are counterattacking outside Pokrovsk. Let me increase the size of this a little bit. There we go. So here we have an image of Ukrainian soldier loading Ukrainian some artillery around Pokrovsk. Ukrainian soldier from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. As the Russian Second Combined Arms Army and adjacent units ground toward the Ukrainian stronghold of Pokrovsk in late August, some Russian observers cautioned against overconfidence on the part of the Russians. Yes, the Second CAA, dozens of regiments and brigades strong, outnumbers the Ukrainian force around Pokrovsk, the Tavria Operational Strategic Group around 4 to 1. Yes, the Ukrainians have been steadily retreating along the Pokrovsk axis since at least mid February when the Russians breached the defenses of the fortress city of Avdiivka on the axis eastern end. But despite assigning a dozen battalions from 8 or so brigades to their surprise invasion of Russia's Kursk Oblast, the Ukrainians seem to have kept 4 or 5 brigades, each with up to 2,000 troops and hundreds of vehicles in reserve. Russian propagandist Evgeny Norin described these units as, quote, reasonably intact and well equipped. Now, some of those reserves are finally joining the fight along the last lines of trenches and fortified towns 5 or 6 miles outside Pokrovsk and its vital supply lines. What is happening is exactly what was predicted. The Ukrainian armed forces have begun counterattacking, one Russian blogger reported. And that's helping stabilize the front line, at least for now. And so what's interesting is the fact that we're seeing here Russian, you know, recognized here Russian propagandists who are even saying that Ukrainian armed forces appear to be counterattacking. This has surprised some Ukrainian observers who blamed a lack of fortifications rather than a lack of troops for the Tavria Operational Strategic Group's months-long retreat east of Pokrovsk. Not so long ago, there was public discourse suggesting that the deployment of additional brigades to the Pokrovsk direction wouldn't make much difference, Ukrainian analysis group Front Intelligence Insight noted.
Hmm.
Yet here we are, seeing that it does make a difference. So,
Hmm.
uh, and as we continue to go through the article, it does mention don't expect immediate dramatic changes around Pokrovsk for right now. But what are your thoughts on this, James? Do you think that do you think that there have been enough units actually pulled away from the Eastern Front on the Russian side that it's making a difference after everything that's happened in Kursk, or do you think it's because they did leave several in reserve because obviously they were going to defend and do a counterattack
Yeah.
to keep the enemy away from Pokrovsk. Do you think it's more psychological? What's happening right now? This reporting. What do you think?
No, okay. So I think ultimately, what's happening here, this is the essence. I think, from my understanding of the Soviet doctrine, of deep battle, and it also reminds me in some ways of an older um, American theory from the 1970s, early 1980s of before we had our current our current theory of warfare, which was to slowly retreat and make the enemy feel more and more losses. The point of this is to draw the enemy in. This is what I believe. is to draw the enemy in until their supply lines are stretched out a little bit. And what I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, if you will,
Hmm.
which I think will be an attack on the flanks, and I think in particular on the northern flank of the Pokrovsk salient. I think is where, and that's a big reason why. Oh my gosh, what's the Toretsk? I,
Oh,
I,
yeah, I
the
gotcha.
Tourette's. Yeah, sorry, I have to. I have to remember the names of these towns sometimes. So I think about, okay, Tourette's syndrome. Okay, got
Yep, yep.
it.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so important that Tourette's hold right now, because that from that direction is where a potential flank attack on the Pokrovsk salient would take place. So the first stage, of course, is to prevent further incursion actually into the city of Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk is, I believe, now the primary staging area for the Ukrainian army. In other words, it's been completely evacuated, and yet buses continue to come in to the city, allegedly pulling out 2,000 children a day. I don't think that's the case. I think that there's those buses are full when they come in and empty when they leave. And
Mm.
they're full of soldiers. That's what I think we're going to find out. And I we don't we won't know where until it happens. But I mean, this is hopium. Okay, I'm not denying that. It's entirely speculation, but I think that there's going to be a flank attack coming uh, against the Pokrovsk salient, where they're going to maybe not completely cut off, but make the supply lines coming out of Donetsk, the city of Donetsk, into this salient much more difficult. But it's incredibly important that Toretsk holds, and that the areas on the south side of the salient, all the way down to Volodar, also hold as well, so that all that all that the Russian army has is this finger, pointing at Pokrovsk, if you could imagine it like that on the map. And that's that's where they want to. I mean, if it gets any wider, that would be a real concern to me. In other words, the Russians have been pressing forward, towards the west or northwest. When I would start to get worried is if that salient widens out, because right now it's just kind of it's like a thumb sticking out of the front lines into Ukrainian territory, and what the Ukrainians have to do is cut off the thumb.
Mm. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this also. With regards to the current small unit counteroffensive that's counteroffensives that are happening, small scale
Hmm.
counterattacks.
Hmm.
Um, I've been wondering this. Do you think that some of this, which is kind of slowing the momentum of Russia
Yeah.
in the east,
Yeah.
we're getting closer to winter. My
Yeah.
thoughts being that at this moment, perhaps resources and manpower are not sufficient to fully stop gains in the east. But if the momentum can be slowed down enough to where fortifications can be put in place around Pokrovsk across all of the flanks that you just mentioned, to prevent enemy forces from using tactics that would kind of allow them to surround or attack from multiple directions eventually when if they
Yeah.
as they're trying to approach the city. Do you think that this is really meant to put a freeze and prevent Pokrovsk from falling around winter
Yeah.
time, similar to how Chasiv we were talking so much a while back, months ago, that Chasiv was on the brink of falling, and yet Chasiv does still stand today.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, yeah, that's been my thought on this. That maybe
Hmm.
what we're seeing now is kind of a controlled response and trying to get inside the Russians' heads of, okay, well, wait, do we keep pushing here or do we put more of our units into Kursk? And
Yeah.
basically just that moment of hesitation if it can last for long enough, could make all the difference come wintertime for Ukraine
Yeah,
defensively.
I don't think that Ukraine wants Russia to stop putting more and more and more troops into the
Right.
Pokrovsk salient. I think they want. I think when winter hits in end of November, I think that Ukraine wants. That's when Russia should have the maximum number of troops in the Pokrovsk salient. You know, we
Mm,
don't want them to enter. We don't want them to enter Pokrovsk, or we want to make it extremely difficult for them to ever enter Pokrovsk.
hmm
But what we want is we want them stuck there, essentially.
Right. Gotcha.
We want them stuck there all winter long, and then it becomes a cauldron.
Right.
That's the, you know,
Just like back when
that's
they
the
were trying to take Avdiivka for so long and so many troops were put into that from the enemy's side.
Yeah, right. But the shape of the battlefield is different now than
Hmm
it was in Avdiivka. In Avdiivka, the battle lines. Ukraine was always surrounded on three sides in Avdiivka,
Right.
always for months and months and months of
Yeah.
from almost from the beginning. So this is making lemonade out of lemons, I guess. Out of the fall of Avdiivka is almost exactly the opposite shape, okay, on the battlefield, and now it's the Russians who are surrounded on three sides. In fact, you know,
Yes.
you see. So that's what I think. That's what I hope.
Right.
We shall see.
Well,
We shall
well,
see.
yeah, exactly. We shall see. And honestly, we all know that from the Russian side, I won't say irrelevant. Maybe they want the world to think that it's irrelevant, but we're at approaching before too long 650,000 estimated losses on the Russian
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
I've heard some people say it would have to reach as high as 2 million before
Yeah.
both the economy and the military industrial complex of Russia, the national level industrial complex, military industrial complex would really feel it. But we shall see. All right, let's move on to the next article.
Sure.
Um, all right. Now, this one I found interesting because it's not so much the message itself, uh, or really the statement itself that I find concerning. It's more the fact that I don't see a lot of the same energy or enthusiasm in this article from the American side with support to Ukraine. Let me put it into the chat and then we'll discuss it. Let me share and open. So, actually, maybe I'll just leave it like this. I'll just increase the size so we can be visible while it's showing. So, Austin says, from rferl.org, Austin says using U.S. weapons for long range strikes is no game changer in Ukraine. U.S. Defense.
Now is no
Right.
game changer.
Right. Yeah. It's like it would have been much earlier on.
Good.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky attend a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany on September 6th. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said on September 6th that no single military weapon will be decisive for Ukraine to defeat Russia's full-scale invasion and that the use of donated U.S. weapons for long-range strikes into Russia would not turn the tide of the war in Ukraine's favor. Uh, well, I'm going to say this. Ukraine has already struck pretty deep into Russia for years now throughout this war. But being able to do so more frequently and with all the weapons it has available to it would have been helpful earlier on. Speaking after a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany, Austin told reporters that Russia had moved its glide bombs back to positions beyond the range of U.S.-made Army tactical missile systems, or ATACMS. He also noted that Ukraine itself had significant capabilities to attack targets well beyond the range of the British Storm Shadow cruise missile. Austin made the comments after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky personally appealed to the group for more weapons and support from its Western allies and called on allies to allow Ukraine to use the weapons they provided to strike deeper into Russia. From the president, we need to have this long range capability not only on the divided territory of Ukraine, but also on Russian territory so that Russia is motivated to seek peace, Zelensky said at the meeting with top U.S. Military leaders and more than 50 partner countries. Um, so and then there's a quote here: "We need to make Russian cities and even Russian soldiers think about what they need: peace or Putin," he told the gathering hosted by Austin. So, what are your thoughts on this with regards to? I mean, we obviously this is something that a lot of channels have talked about for a while: the need to be able to strike
Yeah.
deeper into Russian territory with Western donated and and financed funded weapons that have
Sure.
been provided to the UAF, but I mean, just kind of this language, this rhetoric, because when the election is over in the U.S., I've been saying this for a while. I want to know. I want to see more signals, even if they're subtle ones, from
Yeah.
a future Harris administration, potential
Yeah.
Harris administration, regarding what's really going to be done and not just said to help Ukraine. And it might all depend on whether Democrats, if they win the election, take the whole board, both chambers of Congress and the presidency or not. But assuming that
Mhm.
they didn't, assuming we were in a
Mhm.
situation where you had Kamala Harris as president and when only one chamber of commerce controlled by Democrats, I
Mhm.
want to know, what are we actually going to provide? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, okay, here's what I think. I think just getting Kamala cannot come soon enough.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But just getting Trump and his cronies and his whole rhetoric out of there, taking his campaign off the board, is going to have a huge dramatic effect for Ukraine and for support for Ukraine from the Republican side. Because right now, Trump has made Ukraine a political issue when it should not be. It's not. It shouldn't be it's a policy issue. It's not a political issue in
Yeah.
America. You know, the let's say the majority of real Republicans
Yeah.
agree that helping Ukraine is the right thing to do, and we need to do more of it. And I think that once this Trump wave has subsided, I think that the Republican Party will go back to normal, and I don't know what the Trumpers will do. They can fuck off, I guess.
Right.
Maybe they'll go form their own party. That would be great. That would be fine. Fantastic. They should do that.
I feel
Uh,
very. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say I feel like there's probably a crossroads, an overlap of MAGA Republican members of the GOP and members of the U.S. Constitution Party, if you know anything about
Oh,
that group.
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
the crazy officially Christian
mhm,
nationalist minority party.
mhm, mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, big time. Well, yeah, I mean, I was a Christian nationalist as a child. I was
Mm,
raised up in that, so I know
uh,
all about that stuff.
oh yeah.
um, oh
Yeah,
man.
it's its own little microcosm, its own world of craziness. I feel you.
So, but on the second point, I think Anna made a good point. Austin's mundane lip service to Zelensky was absolutely embarrassing as an American. You
Mm,
know,
yeah,
and who knows if it's coming from Biden, if we want to blame Jake Sullivan, or if it's I know that there is a kind of almost a war going on between the two factions, the anti-escalation faction and the pro-Ukraine faction within the president's administration.
yeah.
And this has been since day one
Oh yeah.
of the war. And I just I hope that Kamala is that we're going to resolve that issue once and for all. So it'll be doubly good on both sides, right? So Trump will fade away, and his cronies will fade away, and and then Kamala will come in with a more forceful. It needs to be this is what it should be. The natural uh, state of American politics is the Republicans want to send more weapons, and the Republicans want war, and the Democrats are the ones who are like, oh, I don't know, and so I think that the United States needs to restore its natural balance, its natural political balance, and I
Yeah.
hope that that will happen. Um,
Yeah.
but the other point I would like to make is that like I said at the beginning, all of these weapons have it's like spitting on a fish, right? Because the Russians have already withdrawn most of these weapons out to that outside the range of the potential range of the long range weapons that we are dithering about.
Yep.
And you might say, well, then why do we don't need to give them anymore, right? That's kind of what Austin is saying. Like, well, we don't need to give them anymore because the Russians have already. Why have they withdrawn those forces? Because they think that the United States is going to give those long range weapons. As soon as the United States confirms or the Russians realize, oh, I guess America's never really going to do it, they're going to move those weapons right back. They're going to move those weapons right back. So America has to do it. It has to be done.
Yeah.
And, we just have to keep putting pressure,
I,
and I think people like Cheryl Watley in our chat who
mhm.
write their Congress people every freaking day,
Yeah.
Is we got to do something,
Agreed. No, it's incredibly important. And yeah. I honestly I think there's some, and this is something I think that really isn't a party thing. I think it just has to do with individual policymakers in DC. I think there are some who want to see this conflict as
That's right. It crosses party
more
line.
similar to. Yeah, I think there are some who want this to just kind of go away and become a frozen conflict the U.S. doesn't have to deal with, like Transnistria or like the situation in
Right.
Republic of Georgia with occupied land there. Um,
Yeah.
but this is too big to ever
Yeah.
become something like that. You
Right.
know, this is something the U.S. has to be committed to if the U.S. is going to support Ukraine, and the U.S.
Yeah.
should support Ukraine. Um,
Yeah.
Especially because when you really think about it, this is something the US, even without directly putting boots on the ground, troops in place, could really make a difference and help Ukraine to win this war if the
Yeah.
right decisions at some point are being made in a timely manner. Whereas other conflicts that may come up in the future, where the US again becomes concerned about escalation, Taiwan, for example, there's a feeling of uncertainty
Mm.
among some U.S. policymakers. Not all, but some. This is one where there doesn't need to be uncertainty. Russia can be
Yeah.
pushed back without a direct confrontation between two nuclear powers.
Yeah. And well,
Anyway,
and it's short term thinking. Okay, it's short term thinking because actually this policy of de-escalation or non-escalation is actually extending the war. It's actually escalating. It's a complete lack of understanding of mindset. And I know this gets repeated over and over, but Russia has to be shown force, and it's the only thing they respond to. It's the only thing they understand. It's it's a failure to understand the Russian culture and the Russian mindset, and it's this expectation that we have that everyone thinks like us, everyone is like us, and that's just not the case.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not the case.
absolutely. All right, so we're okay. So we're about, actually, I guess we started around 15 past the hour, so we're about 35
Okay.
minutes in. Before I go to the next
Yeah.
article, I believe I'd asked this earlier, but do you have anything in particular you want to bring up, James, or anything?
Well,
Mm,
the most important thing is I want to thank everyone who has donated to buy the car that we are buying for um, the Alpha Company of the First Battalion of the International Legion. Okay, that's still in process. I just sent the money. I just sent the money for the car, and um, so I'm going to have to go there actually next weekend and work out all the paperwork. But I'm going to tell you why I sent the money. And the reason I sent the money is because the person we're buying it from, he's a Ukrainian. He's also a veteran, and his he just got injured. He's in the hospital. Okay, it's not a really serious injury. I mean, some shrapnel. I don't know what we call serious injuries these days.
right.
It used to be like stubbing my toe was a serious injury, and now I'm like, well, he didn't die, so it's not serious. Um, so he's in a hospital. This is the person we're buying the car from. He's in the hospital. But his wife has cancer and has to go outside the country to get uh, um, surgery to remove the tumor, and the cost of that is going to be $4,000, 4,000 euros. Okay, or dollars. I can't remember. Anyway, the point is, um, I sent the money before we even had the paperwork done because, first of all, this guy's in the military. I've seen the actual medical documents showing like what, I mean, it's all in Ukrainian, so I had to translate it, and I can't show you. Anyway, the point is, I want to thank everybody for that because it's like you're double helping, triple helping, right? You're helping this unit, you're helping this guy who's in the hospital, and you're helping save this woman's life. Like, it's freaking amazing. So that's the main thing I want to express, just my thanks for that. And so my live stream today, and I haven't had time. Oh God. All right. It's going to be a little bit after. I need maybe half an hour. I might have to set my live stream back by half an hour because I have to go and make sure everyone who bought a ticket gets into the raffle. And we're going to do two raffles for multiple prizes, not just one prize. It's a whole bunch of stuff, a big pile of stuff. So my live stream might just be about that,
Yeah.
because everything that I wanted to talk about, I'm talking about here. We can probably briefly discuss it. But I would just like to say, so I'm in Kyiv right now. The reason I don't have my usual background of flags and everything is because I'm in Kyiv right now. I'm here finally to enlist in the army, in the ZSU. Specifically, I hope they're going to accept me into the drone force. Now, I have to go and fill out paperwork, and I have to go through a medical examination. It's not like 100% yet, but I'm really close. So I'm pretty excited about that. Now, tomorrow I have a lot of things going on. I'm hoping to be at the Azovstal protest with Rick the Ukrainian. I haven't told him that I'm going to be there yet, so I need to message him. And then I'm going to be doing I have a lot of events going on tomorrow and actually throughout the week some of them I might be able to live stream, and I'm going to be making like a lot of video for and things. And then I have some things coming up that I can't exactly talk about now, but I will tell you it involves building drones. Okay. And not me building drones, but other people building drones. And we're potentially going to buy the components. So you'll donate to buy the pieces that we need for other people to build drones. We're essentially setting up our own drone laboratory. It's been a goal since like February. And I think I finally got it going. I think I finally got it on.
Okay.
So, but
Very
I'm
good.
not ready. I don't have it on my website yet. It's not there yet. Right now, you can go on the website and you can support we're supporting a drone team. So the week after this week, when I get back home, I'm going to order all the stuff that you guys have purchased for the drone team, Ithel Ambar. But I will just ask you that coming up here to Kyiv to do all of this is really expensive, and there's as I'm making this transition from doing YouTube and teaching English lessons. That's how I live. I'm going to have this time period of a couple of months, maybe 3 months even, where I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be able to do YouTube as much. I'm not going to be able to do live streams. I'm not going to be able to teach classes. I'm going to be in training, for 2 months of training. I have a month of basic training, and then a month of drone training is basically what I've been told. And that's after I go through my background check and all this paperwork. So altogether, it's going to be almost 3 months where I'm making this transition, and it's going to be really difficult. And so, if anybody wants to help me with that, feel free to go on my website and buy the awesome patches and T-shirts and things, and I will send those to you. So, yeah, that's my big deal right now.
Well, good stuff. Good stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for everything that you do, man, because I mean, really, you've been hitting it from every angle, whether it's fundraising, being physically in Ukraine, building things, seeking to be out there uh, in the field in combat. You really are very dedicated in a lot of different ways, and I respect that a lot. I want you to know
Well,
that.
thank you. If I was smart, I would just focus on one thing. I would just do YouTube, just teach English, or just whatever. But I'm not. So.
Oh, I no, I hear you. People tell me the exact same thing all the time. Like, secular Sekai, why are you doing 20 different things? Just focus on one thing. And it's like, well, there's a use for both. You need masters of one trade and you need jacks of all trades.
Yeah,
It takes a village. It takes a village.
yeah,
All right,
yeah.
so let's see here. Oh, and also, I've got right here, real fast before we go to the next article. Your website. So let
Oh,
me just,
yay!
yeah. So
Yeah,
that is in the ticker that's been going the whole
yeah,
stream. Everyone, go check out yukraine.com.
yeah,
And that is just the letter Y, then ukraine.com.
yep,
And this is the website. So you can purchase different items. Several are related to the secret drone lab project. So you can take a
yeah.
look at some of those and help
And
with that initiative.
I
Mhm.
don't know if you saw my I don't know if you saw my recent post. I talked about it in my last live stream, but I on my community tab on my channel. I was interviewed last week by the largest national television station of Ukraine for like
Mhm.
2 hours. And so they sent me the video, and it's on YouTube, but I guess they're going to do like a long form documentary as well. I'm a little
Yeah,
bit embarrassed about it.
you know,
I
you
mean,
know. Uh-huh.
go
Well,
ahead.
I was gonna say, if you're talking documentaries, I know one person who would be great to talk to about that. Who I believe we've all appeared on a panel before. Dylan Burns.
Mhm.
So I mean,
Oh yeah, Dylan. Yeah, I would love to talk to him, and I have not been on a panel with him yet.
I've been on with him once or
Somehow we,
twice.
we
He's
yeah.
a really great guy. I really thoroughly enjoy when he's a part of discussions.
Yeah, dude, he's super
Yeah.
fun for sure.
Um.
The other thing I would like to just mention, just since we're talking about fun stuff,
Mhm.
is today I couldn't resist it on my way to between here and there as I was traveling around here in Kiev, getting to where I was. I looked on my Google Maps, and I realized I was really close to the History of Toilets Museum.
What? Really?
Yeah, there's a History of Toilets Museum in Kiev. I mean,
Don't
Kiev
don't
has so.
don't tell the Russians.
I know, right? Oh, this is why they were attacking Kiev in the first place. Okay.
Right.
This is why they wanted Kiev so bad. There's so many toilets in this place. I actually used the toilet in the museum. It was very nice. So anyway, I'm going to be coming out with videos, some videos from the toilet museum. And it was really actually a kind of a small museum. It was not really that great, but you can just imagine a large room full of toilets.
I mean the fact that it exists alone inside of Ukraine in this context, I mean,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
It's really, really funny. It's really, really funny. So I picked up something, a one of a kind thing from the toilet museum, and I don't know if you can see it, but
Yep.
look, it's actually a pen. Okay, and on the pen it says, "Oh wait, there we go." Oh, it's backwards. Damn. Okay, but it says, "I give a shit."
Oh, and no, it says I do not give a shit.
Oh, I do not give a shit. Oh, you're right. I do not give a shit. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So and okay, and then here's the fun part, right? It has this little button here. It's actually a pen. It has a cap on it. Hang on. Okay. God, that cap's really hard. All right. It has a cap. It's a pen. But yeah, so it goes like this. There you go, guys.
Yep. Wow,
So
it's got a Russian soldier hiding in it.
yeah. so anyway, this is going to be one of the things that someone will get to win this in the raffle today.
Okay.
That's the it's we have multiple prizes, but somebody's going to get to win this one because it's a one of a kind thing. I've never seen anything like this before. So there you
Perfect.
go.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, be sure to be there, everybody. I'll put a link before the stream is over so everyone can head over to James' channel.
Yeah.
And then last announcement I'll make before we move on because we should get to the next news article. As usual, we are still doing our fundraiser for the 110th Mechanized Brigade, and that's actually I don't have it here on a ticker, but it's in the description. So if you check the
Mhm.
description, you can find the PayPal where donations can be made while we're still determining if we will continue with or find an alternative to buy me a coffee. But PayPal is always available. All right, so moving on. Let's see. Here is something for all Canadian viewers out there that is interesting. Not directly related to the front lines, but I do hope we see Toronto call this off because the information warfare front is important as well.
Mhm.
Ukraine calls for cancellation of Russian propaganda film at Toronto Film Festival.
Mhm.
Consul General
Interesting.
of Ukraine in Toronto, Ole Nikolenko, called on the Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF, not to become a platform for whitewashing the crimes of Russian soldiers in Ukraine and to cancel the screening of the propaganda Russian film Russians at War, UNN reports. We strongly
Wow.
oppose the attempt to use the Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF, to whitewash the crimes of Russian soldiers in Ukraine. The film Russians at War, directed by former Russia Today (RT) documentary filmmaker Anastasia Trofimova, who recently challenged Russian atrocities in Bucha in her statements in Venice, deliberately distorts the realities of Russia's war against Ukraine, Nikolenko wrote.
God.
Yeah, he noted that portraying Russian soldiers as mere, quote, pawns and Russia's invasion of Ukraine as a, quote, vile game adds credibility to Russian propaganda narratives that downplay the severity and suffering caused by Russia's military actions. So yeah, there are thousands of documented cases of war crimes, of rape, torture, murder, and neglect of Ukrainians by Russian troops. Those who join the Russian army are offered large monetary compensation or expungement of their criminal record, and they make this decision with full understanding of their actions in Ukraine, emphasized Nikolenko. So I have not seen. First of all, let me just. Oh, and also, hold on a second. Let me do two things. The last article we covered is now in chat, and so is this one, so people can find them and check them out on their own, as always. Um, I have not seen this, so let me preface by saying I have not seen this film yet, but
I
my
don't want
thoughts on
to.
this, yeah, I don't want to either. My thoughts on this are it's interesting because just from the language here, that this is meant to show portray Russian soldiers as quote pawns, and that the invasion of Ukraine is a quote vile game. It
Mhm.
kind of it gives me feels similar to I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Russian films regarding the Chechen Wars and
No.
yeah, trust me, they're not worth seeing. But the idea being that during the Chechen Wars, a lot of soldiers are portrayed as young men, don't know what they're getting into. They're pawns of the state. It's a horrible situation, but they're going and they're doing what they have to do. That's the feel that I get from the description of this film.
Mm.
And yeah, the bottom line is no, Russian soldiers need to be held accountable. If there
Mm.
were an alternative, if there were more Russian soldiers refusing to fight or choosing to defect and join, say, the Legion Svoboda and actually assist Ukraine instead of just blindly committing war crimes, intentionally committing war crimes, that'd be a different story, but that's not the world that we live in at
Mhm.
all. So, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I yeah. So I mean, with regards to Russian propaganda, there was something earlier this year in Italy, an attempt at a pro-Russian event. There's this one in
Mhm.
Toronto, Canada. There have been others, of course, all across the world. What do you think is the most important way to, aside from articles like this, to put it into the public's eye, the best way to fight off this propaganda, this idea of Russians, the Russian people are not at fault, it's our government, and there's nothing we can
Yeah.
do about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, the United States Congress needs to declare Russia to be a terrorist state. That's the best way, because
Hmm.
then we have legal things set in place that just automatically kick in that will prevent all of these incursions and intrusions from happening. And I'm sure that we're going to talk about the tenant media thing. You know, all of these things, we need to make it so that if you are taking money, even through 15 different shell companies, if you're taking money, and I'm quite certain this TIFF was, there's money coming in from somewhere to make this happen, right? So, um, that's the number one thing that needs to happen. Once the United States does that, then other countries like Canada and European countries and many others will follow. Will follow through, and that's something. If Democrats win the House and keep the Senate, I have I think that will happen. Um, even if they get even just a little bit closer to a majority, um, I think that's going to happen. Um, you know, I just think about the narrative that's being presented there that sort of absolves Russian citizens, if you can call them citizens, of responsibility. It's connected to the narrative of, oh, this is Putin's war, and we shouldn't do anything that's going to hurt the Russian people because they didn't choose this war. This is Vladimir Putin. But then the secondary narrative. So that's one undermining of support for Ukraine. You know,
Hmm. Yep.
and then the second thing is then when they say, oh, it's just a vile game, what they say is it's a vile game that the West is playing. Okay, that's
Yeah.
the second part of that sentence, and that's
Yep.
absolutely not true. It's a vile game that Vladimir Putin and the Russians are playing, and
Yeah.
that the Russian people acquiesce to, and they're not absolved of in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So, it's just a part. I think that we are going to, and I'm sure we'll get to talking about some update on the whole like the tenant media thing, but I think that we are going to start uncovering more and more and more. I think that this type of stuff is just tip of the iceberg of the Russian influence campaigns that have been ongoing in not just the United States, but many, many Western countries and Eastern countries as well. You know, I posted on my community tab a link, or maybe it was a screenshot. I just did a search like Ukraine war
Hmm.
on my phone, and it came up with a bunch of Indian news websites that were saying, "Oh, Ukraine has lost 7,800 troops in Kursk. Ukraine's being slaughtered in Kursk. Putin brings the hammer down," and all that. Just other, we just don't realize how much, if we think that, we see these little information pieces of information warfare in our Western societies, how much more successful it has been in non-Western societies like India, like Africa, like Southeast Asian countries,
Oh
where
yeah.
they're just being spoon-fed just bullshit after bullshit.
Oh yeah, exactly. And especially if there's a void and a government is not taking an official stance or is intentionally taking a seemingly neutral or ambiguous stance, strategic ambiguity on the topic. Uh, I'd put India in that camp. I wouldn't
Yeah,
call them fully pro Russia, but they're definitely not pro Ukraine either. And you see a lot more
yeah,
media outlets coming out of India that tend to be highly socially conservative and highly critical of Ukraine, for example. So yeah,
yeah.
another.
Times of India is a big one that puts out a lot of just flat out lies
Oh yeah,
about the Ukraine war. Big lies.
absolutely. And the Venice Film Festival, as I mentioned earlier, Italy screened this film, Russians at War. And
Mhm.
now the attention is being called about it potentially being shown in Canada. So I mean, we have to fight this everywhere. We have to, in every language, which is why everyone, if you're a viewer, and if you are a viewer, everyone, and you speak more languages than just English, if you speak Spanish, if you speak Italian, if you speak Finnish, or if you speak Dutch, whatever it might be, Afrikaans, other languages across the world, uh, and you notice that there isn't a good news source out there that is actually translating and providing information to people in your language,
Mhm.
I highly encourage you to do so.
Mhm.
Make a stand.
Mhm.
Be the one who starts it. In any case, yeah. So I guess we've only got. I know time might be limited because you've got your stream to prepare for.
That's true.
One thing we could do right quick is let's move past the articles and do something right quick. Let me go to Deep State and let's pull up the map real
Mhm.
fast.
Mhm.
Share this tab. Okay, so here we have the Deep State map. So I don't know when the last time you might have looked at the current from a map, a map
Mhm.
of the situation. But as we were discussing, Pokrovsk, just to give people a visual, instead of just talking about it like we do see on many channels. Here's the current
Mhm.
situation with Pokrovsk, and also just as a comparison, here. Oh shoot, here is Chasiv Yar,
Yeah.
and now Chasiv Yar, like Avdiivka, which held for a long time, is still holding. There were concerns initially discussed about it many months ago, if not, was it early this year or late last year when the initial fears about Chasiv Yar were really being voiced. I can't recall, but either way, this is still holding. Pokrovsk is not. We don't have enemy troops right outside of Pokrovsk, but as you can see, slowly but surely there is an encroachment toward the city. And I guess this gives a visual. The flanking issue you were concerned about was that cutting off this road to the north, and then eventually you think the enemy will try to
No,
cut it.
no, no. Zoom out a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, zoom out a little bit. So the flanking. All right. So what I'm looking to see,
Mhm.
look at this. Oh man, see, I have not looked at this since yesterday, and there's an update here. Look at
Uh-huh.
the bottom of the thumb, that little dangly bit there. That's a
Oh, yeah.
real concern.
Mm.
Where is that? What is going on there? That is not something I knew. Oh, okay. I was listening to this morning about
Mhm.
Ukraine's.
Yeah. And you
Oh,
can see that.
see that is a problem because what the Russians want to do is widen out this salient,
Mhm.
make this thumb wider, the whole Pokrovsk, and this it, they're turning this into, that's a real problem. That is a real problem, and the southern side of this salient is where the Ukrainians, if they are going to counterattack, it's where they're going to have more difficulty, I think,
Mhm.
because of the terrain, because you've got those lakes that you can see there.
Mhm.
This is a definitely a concern to me that I was not aware of.
Mm.
Because if you zoom out a little bit here, you can see how that this creates a nice little cauldron
Oh.
that you see where the Ukrainians who are here are going to be very, very exposed to, even short range artillery. And if these two little, I don't know, dangly bits, if you will,
Mhm.
if they can be connected, then that's going to be an Avdiivka scenario where the troops in that, the Ukrainian troops in that area could be cut off, and that's a real concern.
That
Ukraine
mhm.
needs to get more troops down there faster.
Yeah. So, and with the cauldron effect, are you referring to kind of, here for Ukrainsk itself, this smaller cauldron, or a bigger
No,
cauldron forming this big one
bigger.
here?
Yeah, this big area here. That's what I'm
Mm.
concerned with.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at pretty small areas, and mid to long range artillery can really hit that real hard. And
Yeah.
I think that it's if we go back to where you were looking originally in Novohorivka and
Mhm.
Krasny Yar, like looking more over at Pokrovsk.
Okay.
Um, so zoom in
Oh,
on
yeah.
that. It's what's Yeah. So what's very interesting is, see that this little finger that's sticking out here,
Mm, yeah.
that is Novohorivka. And a couple, maybe even 3 weeks ago, I did a live stream where the thumbnail was like, this is, yeah, and Krasny Yar is just slightly above it and to the right. So
Mm.
that little piece sticking out there, what you can't see on this map is that there are some terrain features
Mhm.
that arguably make, um, not this area where the road is. It go up at the top of your screen, very top.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. So put that center. No, go
Oh,
down,
sorry.
go down, go down, go down. There we go,
Yeah.
right there. So this little, I don't know, this little dog head thing here.
Mhm.
I have said that spot is like where this whole Pokrovsk incursion has to be stopped, has to be slowed down, and it's very interesting that is where it has. That is where it seems to be culminating, and also Krasny Yar, which is right in that area as well. And
Yeah.
it has to do with certain terrain features there, some higher positions, and in fact, Johnny over at ATP Geopolitics was talking about there's two big like slag heaps or something, like man-made hills, on either side of that road.
Mhm.
Um, that the road or actually, I'm sorry, it's a railroad is what I meant to say.
Uh,
And that
so I
is
mhm.
that position, is it kind of gives you this higher position. Potentially the Ukrainians gives them a higher position. They can kind of look down from both sides on the advancing Russians, and I think that's what they're doing.
Mm.
And Cheryl said I'm worried about a pivot south toward Volodar. And you're right, Volodar, in order for Pokrovsk to be successful for the Ukrainians from a strategic standpoint, Volodar
Mhm.
has to
Mm.
hold, Tridents has to hold. If Because otherwise, if Volodar starts to fall back, and
Mhm.
Toretsk starts to fall back, then there's nowhere to attack this salient from the flanks. There's
Mm,
no way there. You can't cut off the thumb if you're being cut off yourself. And
right.
that's my concern on the south end of the Pokrovsk thumb
Yeah.
is that it's being widened out, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to counterattack. Yeah,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
yeah.
And well,
So
hold
yeah,
on.
that's
Vuhledar. I'm looking for it right quick. Where
it's a
south
little
is
bit
it?
south. It's
A
a
little
little
bit
bit
further.
south.
Oh, here we go. Here it
Yeah,
is. Down
yeah,
here near where the
yeah,
what was last liberated in the counteroffensive had
yeah,
been. Okay.
yeah.
Yes, here we go. Here we go.
And the
Okay.
reason Volodar is so important is because that's the only place, if HIMARS want to be able to hit the railroad that is being built um, into Crimea along through Berdyansk, the Volodar area is the only place that they can launch from. I believe it's the only place they can launch from where they can take out the Russian supply routes along the north side of the Sea of Azov. So Volodar has to hold no matter what. It's
Mm,
so important. So
okay.
important.
I see. I see. Yeah. Well, and speaking of which, I know that speaking of the Sea of Azov, I mean, the Sea of Azov, in order to really make use of navally anything in this area, the Ukraine would, of course, need to take back more land from the Russians, which is right now just preventing the Russians from taking more from Ukraine is the primary objective. But down here in the Black Sea, um, I guess there's really not much that can be done other than just making Russia pay. Sinking as many ships, really causing as much harassment and damage to the Russian Navy as possible that they choose to put down in the Black Sea fleet. Um, but all of that is really just more focused on Crimea itself. I guess up here, all of this, there's really, yeah, there's really nothing that can be done other than to just dig trenches and
Mhm.
attempt to prevent the enemy from gaining these breakthroughs that'll allow them to create these cauldrons and kind of create a smoother point, land of occupation and eventually surround places like Vuhledar as they move westward.
Yeah. Now, in the Black Sea, in my humble opinion, which isn't going to sound very humble, but
Hmm.
um, Ukraine needs to start attacking Russian commercial shipping, not just in the Black Sea, but around the world.
Mm,
That's what needs to. This is full scale war. Okay,
right.
Russia was doing it to the Ukrainians and would be doing it right now if they could. Um, they've moved back all of their the majority of their military vessels either to the to Republic of Georgia occupied territory or even to the Caspian Sea. Um, so I know there's still plenty of military objectives in the Black Sea, but hitting even one or two doesn't have to be grain ships, cargo, just Russian commercial carriers really
Hmm.
need to be hit because they are support. It's the why do we have sanctions? Why do we have sanctions? It's because we have to starve the Russian economy, and it needs to happen not just on the Black Sea. It needs to happen. I want to see when Kamala comes in. I want to see a blockade
Hmm.
um, of the Baltic Sea. A blockade of Russia in the Baltic Sea,
Mm,
and yeah, because that's a huge weakness for Russia right there, and
right.
it wouldn't
Right.
and it wouldn't take much.
Hmm.
Even a partial blockade where only certain types of things like only humanitarian aid will be allowed in and out of Russia. No
Hmm.
commercial trade, no, all of that type of stuff. Because there's tons and tons of weapons, tons and tons of oil, all this stuff. It needs to be blockaded, and then the only thing Russia will have left, the only two places Russia will have left, will be Murmansk, which
Hmm.
is up north, and Vladivostok. And
Okay.
um,
Oh yeah.
I want to, yeah, Murmansk is there, and Vladivostok is over by Japan and China.
Yes.
Um, but um, I just think that it just needs to be ramped up and up and up, and
basically
know.
choke their economy even more than
Hmm.
the West has been willing to.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, because there's not a whole lot of trade going on. Well, yeah, right now through the Black Sea, unless Turkey
No,
is making.
Russia's sending a lot of grain ships, stolen grain from
Uh,
southern Ukraine that they're sending
hmm
through the straits. All kinds of other stuff, and it just needs to be. Uh,
and Istanbul is very willing to allow that because they're quote unquote
oh
being
yeah,
a peace broker because they're making a profit as well.
as
And
long as they make money off it, they don't care.
yeah, yeah. I see, I see. Yeah, and that's kind of what Russia is after, to have this control so long term, decades from now, not just up here in the Baltics or, their concerns of being able to send ships out from the far east near Japan, but they also would
Yeah,
be able to do so with with uh with impunity, without any consequences, is what they're hoping for through the Black Sea.
yeah.
Um, and maybe
A
slowly
lot, a lot of
broker.
people don't realize, they don't understand how vulnerable Russian shipping is,
Yeah.
and it's an extremely vulnerable point. And I think that at some point Ukraine is going to have to start taking measures to attack Russian shipping outside of the Black Sea, inside and outside the Black Sea. I just think
Okay.
it's probably going to be next year, but it needs to happen.
Absolutely. Okay, so very good. Well, we've definitely discussed quite a few good points regarding tactics and the current situation on the battlefield and strategies that might come to fruition in the future. Speculation on it, at least, regarding uh, naval attacks. So, good
Mhm.
conversation. Let me stop sharing this. All right, there we go. Okay, so I know you got to get ready for your stream, and I got to do a few things too. So,
Yeah,
I guess we can go ahead and close up right quick. Do you have
yeah.
any final words you wanna, say to the viewers?
What I would say is that I know I know there's at least one viewer who is actually in Ukraine, but I'm in Kiev, in fact. So if you are in Kiev, um, you know, feel free to hit me up on Discord or whatever, and we'll get together and have coffee or something. Have a beer. Who knows? Something like
Yeah,
that. It'd be fun. It'd be nice.
uh, absolutely.
I always like meeting viewers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I'm finally getting to where I think I'll be able to make my way over to Ukraine.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to that, so I can actually meet some people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I mean, if you plan it out right, you can do it pretty cheap. You know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, perfect. Well, thanks for being here, James. And
Cool.
as always, oh, before we finish, though, let me do the thing I said I was going to before. Uh, I'm gonna go ahead and put a link to James' stream here in the chat. Everybody, please be
Oh,
sure
cool.
to go check it out.
Yeah. Please
Uh,
come see me. Come say hello. Like
uh,
like I said, we're gonna be doing the raffle for all of the cool prizes that everybody's winning. So
all right, and that'll
yeah,
be. Oh, hold on. Why Ukraine stream? And also, let me put it in the description.
yeah. So hopefully that will be in 1 hour.
Yep, in 1 hour, everybody. So be sure to check it out, share it on social media, in your Discord servers, Facebook. If you use it, Twitter, uh, Threads. I don't know, maybe Instagram if you want to. Yeah,
Yeah,
wherever.
please do that because I'm traveling and stuff. I didn't have time to spam all of the usual places that I spam my stream. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
precisely.
appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, James. And it was a great talk. And
Yeah, for
yeah, I'll
sure.
see you again soon.
All right, do
All right.
побачення, everybody.
Yep. Slava Ukraini, everyone.
Slava Ukraini. Heroam Slava.
All right.